Hey, everyone. It's me. I'm Dr. D. I'm back. It's good to see you all again. So I wanted to touch base with you all today. For those of you who've been following the channel for a while, those of you that I know personally, you may know that God often shares things with me through dreams, through visions. He'll speak to me. He'll show me things. And many of them here lately have been, for my own personal development, my own walk, where he has me, what he would have me do. But this particular one, when he shared it with me, he pretty much immediately told me that this was for someone. All right. So I wanted to come on here today and I wanted to share with you a vision that God showed me. And I also wanted to share with you the message that God was sharing with me behind that vision. A lot of the videos that I do come from those visions, but I don't often share what the visions are and the dreams are. I just share the message. But for this vision, for whatever reason, God wanted me to share the vision itself. And then he also wanted me to share what he shared with me about it. So we're going to jump on in. Today I'm out and about a ton, but when God speaks, you move, right? And so since God shared this with me, I grabbed my notebook, the notebook I always have in most of my videos. I grabbed my notebook, grabbed my Bible, threw them in my bag, and I got to where I needed to be a little bit early today. So I wanted to take the time to make sure that I recorded this so that God can share whatever it is he needs to share with his children today, because it's not about me and my schedule. So the vision, it was very quick, very succinct. And I was like, well, God, what? It was like a flash, maybe 10 seconds, but all that he wanted me to share from that vision was quite a bit more extensive. So let's just jump on in. So I was sitting, and basically the vision was, there's a few other things happening, but the portion of the vision that he wanted me to share with you all was, I was sitting there and I saw a kitchen. The kitchen was completely empty, aside from a table. There was a table and there was a very small bowl, maybe like a small dessert bowl, like an ice cream size bowl. It's pretty small bowl. And there was a hand pouring cereal into the bowl. And it was just kind of pouring in. The bowl was never filling up. It was never overflowing. And that was about it. Right. So I was like, okay. But let me tell you what God actually revealed in that. So there was actually quite a bit of symbolism that was happening there that the Lord revealed to me. The first thing was the kitchen. So the kitchen was really bare, aside from that table and that bowl and what was happening at the table. And so essentially what was going on there, what God was showing me, was that in this particular season, whoever this is for, pray and ask God, because everything isn't for everybody. But if this is for you, you'll know. God will tell you. But for whoever this is actually for, what this really represents is a season of preparation. So a kitchen is where things are prepared, where things are made. And so in this particular dream, the kitchen was completely bare aside from what was happening on that table. And what that really represents is the fact that right now in this particular season, when God is preparing you, when God is doing what he's doing, it might not look the way you want it to look. Like most of us, when we think about our kitchen, we have lots of decorations and decor, and it's a gathering place, and there's family and friends, and all kinds of stuff are happening. But the fact that all of that was bare was really speaking to, this is a season of preparation. It might not look the way you want it to look. It might not be glamorous. There might not be glitz and glam. It might feel like utter and complete bare bones up in this situation. God's aware of that. What he is saying is, what's happening in the background, all the pretty flits and frills and glitz and glamour, all of that stuff that we typically see, that's not what he wants you to focus in on. So if you focus in on the fact, hey, this is my preparation season, but it doesn't look the way I want. It's bare. It's not pretty. It's not attractive. It's not what I would want for myself. Then we're going to lose focus of what he is actually doing in this season for us, which is what was happening on that table. So for folks who know that they're in a preparation season, they know that God is grooming them, preparing them, and they feel like this feels like the bare bones of my life. This feels like a step backwards. This feels like, where's all the other stuff I've become accustomed to that I would want? Go ahead and prepare me, but make it pretty, right? God is saying that's not what I'm doing right now, right? So don't let the fact that the preparation doesn't look the way you would want it to look deter you from paying attention to what God is actually doing, okay? So the other thing that was going on in this particular dream was cereal was being poured into the bowl. And I don't actually know if I talked about this yet or if I said it yet, but there was actually a prize that came out of the cereal while it was pouring. We'll get to the prize in a second. But the cereal was being poured. It was actually Cheerios. Very specific. It was Cheerios. I didn't give the image. I'm just going to tell you what I saw, because that's between you and Jesus, right? That's y'all's business. But it was cereal, okay? It was Cheerios. So Cheerios, when you think about the cereal itself, again, it does not look like the most fancy cereal ever, right? It's not Fruit Loops or Frosted Flakes, or it's not sugary. It's not attractive. It's even the box itself isn't like, ooh, kids aren't like, I want that one. It's not that type of cereal. But what it is it's nourishing, right? It's nutritious. It provides exactly what you need. So those Cheerios are really representing God's provision during this time, and his nourishment. The fact that he is sustaining you, even though the way that he is doing it does not look like the way you would prefer. Most folks would prefer to grab some, I love Cheerios, I eat them every day, but most folks would prefer to grab, Fruit Loops over Cheerios, or honeycombs or whatever. But the fact that it was Cheerios really speaks to God's provision, and his sustainment and his nourishment during this season. Again, probably doesn't look the way you would like it to look, or the way that you would hope it would look. But when we think about Cheerios, even in the natural sense, their claim to fame is like, they help lower blood pressure and cholesterol. Like, it's a very simple cereal, but it's nourishing, it's filling. And for some folks, it even helps to correct some conditions, underlying conditions that obviously they don't want. And so with his provision during this time, it's not about the glitz and glamour. It is about you being sustained, you being nourished, you never going without, never going hungry. And he is actually using this time to correct some of those underlying conditions in you. So for some folks, it might be pride, right? That might be why you want the kitchen to look beautiful. Well, go ahead and prepare me, God, but don't make me super uncomfortable. Don't you dare make me look silly or stupid. And don't you dare take me backwards, right? Keep moving me forward. Just elevation. Let's just do that, right? For some folks, it might be strongholds, right? You might not have forgiven folks you needed to forgive. Your heart might not be as healthy, which Cheerios corrects, but your heart might not be as healthy as it could be because you're harboring unforgiveness, trauma, rejection, abandonment, like mommy wounds and daddy wounds. And you might be to a place where if pushed even a little bit, you fall right into depression or anxiety or whatever the case may be. But what it's showing is God's provision during this time is really designed to help to nourish, sustain, and correct some of those underlying things that are happening for you, okay? The bowl, okay, so the bowl was a small bowl. It was like I said, a dessert-sized bowl. So what that bowl actually represents is the fact that God is pouring into you. And a lot of folks feel like, I would prefer my bowl to be massive, right? Like, I want to make sure I have everything I need during this season. I don't want just what I need, right? I don't want my daily bread. Give me all of it at once so I know I'm secure. Otherwise, I'm uncomfortable, and no thank you, right? That's not what God is saying. During this time, with this small bowl, he's creating relationship. He's creating reliance on him, right? You have just enough to sustain you. It's never empty, right? And it's never overflowing. It is exactly what you need when you need it. But he's in control of pouring it, right? He'll give you exactly what you need when you need it, but it might not look like you have a massive store of stuff that you would prefer to have. I want a huge bank account. I want my house. I want all this comfort. It's real easy to say, well, I trust you, God, in the midst of abundance. But when you have just enough and you truly, all of your help has to come from God, it's harder, right? It's harder. But that's what he's doing in this season of preparation. He's creating reliance on him, dependence on him, and trust in him. Those things will serve you far better and far longer than seemingly having everything you need right now in this moment. Okay? So that's what that small bowl was all about. And forgive me, I'm kind of glancing to the side because people are walking up, and I am sitting in a parked car. So I want to make sure nothing's going on. But God's got me, so it's fine. That person just got eerily close. So, all right. So that's what the bowl, right, represents. That's what that bowl is about. Oh, the other thing that I didn't talk about is capacity. So a lot of times when we are believing God for something, we will also question, Lord, do I have the capacity to steward that? I know you told me you're going to give me this blossoming ministry, but am I good enough to hold that, to sustain that? I know you're going to give me this marriage, but am I healed enough to be able to keep it, right? If I get it. I know you're going to give me this business, but do I have what it takes to run it? So again, when we think about what God is doing in this hour with the small bowl, with creating reliance on him, relationship to him, it really is going to help allow you to see that you have the capacity through God to hold on to whatever it is he gives you, and to be filled from him, never to overflowing, right? It's not going to be something where it's like, I can't manage this, I can't sustain it. But through your relationship with him, he'll pour out exactly what you need when you need it. And you can rest assured that whatever it is he's pouring out, whatever he's giving you, you can maintain it and you can steward it and you can hold on to it through him. Obviously not through you, because we are not through us, y'all, because we'll jack up just about anything if left to our own devices, right? But all through him. Oh, the other thing was the cereal box. So when the cereal was being poured out, it was really flowing like a river. It was continuous. It was steady, right? And so that really represents that God's provision, though the bowl felt small, like, God, do I have enough? Or did you give me what I need? The cereal flowing out like a river, it really does represent his provision. You might not have a huge mixing bowl full of stuff. It might feel like I have just as much, but God's got absolutely everything that you need in the palm of his hand, right? And he will pour that out on you. He will make sure that you never go without. He's got it, so you don't have to, okay? So that's what the cereal was all about. The table, right? So there was a bowl and it was sitting on the table and the cereal was being poured in. So that table really represents the fact that even during this time, even though it's uncomfortable, right? The kitchen looks bare, the bowl feels small, what is going on here? What is happening? That table really represents God's ability to carry you and to support you. He's not going to let you fall. He is not going to let you stumble. He's got you. He's got you. So don't worry about it. It looks like, okay, this is a bare kitchen, a tiny bowl, what's going on? But God has everything you need in the palm of his hand, and he's gracious and loving enough to pour it out on you without stopping. And to support you and to carry you through anything that you might be going through. So that kind of represents God's role in this situation. Now, this is the time where we want to I might need to put on my seatbelt, but we want to kind of gird ourselves, because there is a message in this. And there is, excuse me, some instruction in this for us. So God and all of that sounds beautiful, super, super uplifting and wonderful. But I want folks to think about the other part of what was happening in this vision. So the other part of what was happening in this vision is I saw a person standing at the table, and they were standing there with their hand on their hip, and they were just watching the cereal being poured into the bowl on the table. So the person actually represents us, okay, us, and how we respond to this season that God has us in. Excuse me. So the person standing there was just watching what was going on. And there's a few things I want you to pay attention to about this person's posture and how they were responding to this. So the first thing is they were standing there with their hand on their hip. They were not seated. right? They were not sitting down and they had no utensils. Okay. So sitting down, being seated at the table would represent agreement, right? It would represent participating in this process. If someone's serving you a meal or giving you something to eat, you sit down. You sit down at the table, you pull your chair up, you get your utensils, you're ready to go. This person was not adopting that posture, right? They were standing up with their hand on their hip. So they were not in a position to receive what was happening. They were frustrated, hence the hand on the hip, right? They were observing what was going on, but they were not participating in the situation. There was no milk. They didn't bring the milk to the table. They didn't bring utensils to the table. They didn't bring a chair. They were just standing there watching. And what I kind of know in my knower, right? This wasn't part of the vision, but what I know in my knower was that the person was looking on in anticipation. They didn't want the cereal. They were waiting for what was going to come out of that box, the prize, okay? The prize in that box. And so this whole process, all of this stuff that was being poured out, they were not participating in it. They were not consuming it. They were not appreciative of it. They were standing with their hand on their hip, like, get to the good stuff, right? Okay. And so we want to be very mindful during this season that God has some of us in while he's preparing us and he's providing for us, to not adopt that posture of, okay, God, move this along. Like, this is bare. I want more of that. This is not pretty. Like, make this better. Or give me the big blessing that I'm waiting on. But whatever this is, no thanks. I'm not really interested. We want to make sure that we're not adopting that posture. Because again, I already said that cereal, the stuff that was getting poured out, represents nourishment and sustenance, and can even be corrective for some things that need to be corrected in our lives. You know, God pouring those things out on us represents the relationship that he's trying to build with us, his love for us, his provision for us. So many beautiful things, so many things that are going to be necessary for us to be able to, one, appreciate some of these other types of blessings. I won't even say the promise, just other types of blessings, things that we identify as bigger or promises are just more of God's provision and blessings. And we have to get to the place where we can see whatever it is that God is choosing to do in our lives, whatever it is he's choosing to provide as blessings, as provision, as meaningful, just as much as we see these big promises that we're waiting on. Because until we adopt that posture, we're really not in a position to receive some of the things that we're waiting on God for. Here God is saying, hey, I love you so much. I'm going to be your source. I'm going to provide for you. I'm going to give you everything you need. I'm going to sustain you. I'm going to nourish you. I'm going to heal you. I'm going to restore you. I'm going to foster relationship with you. I'm going to teach you how to rely on me. I'm going to get it so that I can talk to you and you can hear me and we can love on each other and we can be, you know, what we're designed to be, what I'm designed to be for you and what you're designed to be for me. We can commune with one another. I'm doing all of this in this season for you. And you're like, if you don't hurry up and give me my husband, where's my business? Where's my wife? Where's my promotion? Where's my huge bank account, God? Where's my new car? Where's my house? That's what I'm waiting on. When you think about it that way, can't you see how not only painful that would be for God, how hurtful that would be for God, but can you not see how that doesn't demonstrate that you're not yet ready to steward these promises or these bigger blessings if you can't see the provider, right? The God behind those things. Because all these things are going to pass away, right? The house, the finances, none of that stuff remains. What remains is our connection with our Father. And that is ultimately the best prize and the best gift that you could ever receive. But when we adopt the posture of like, well, God, just hurry up. Like, get me out of this place. Move me on over there because whatever this is, I don't like it. That's not what God wants for us, right? And so I'm not saying this in a finger pointy, judgmental, y'all need to clean it up and get it together. I'm saying this because I too have been there. I've been there where I'm like, God, you know, you gave me this promise and now I don't quite understand this process that you're walking me through. And quite frankly, I'm frustrated and I, you know, would prefer it to be something else. I've been there because you can only talk about what you know, right? You got to walk it to talk it. Anybody with uh, um, any sort of trust in God to pour into his people, you have that trust from God, because God knows, hey, I've brought you through some stuff, and you're not going to be just saying what sounds pretty and what sounds good. You've had to live some stuff. You've had to get knocked down and picked up and restored and all those sorts of things. So I'm only saying this because I've been there. I've fallen into that trap myself of saying, God, but you promised me this, and this. Like, where are those things? Because this kind of, I'd prefer not. I've been there. So I'm saying this out of so much love and so much like, hey, y'all, if I could help you not be in this season longer, I want to share what God is sharing with me, because God's saying it so that you can get it together. So you can get it together so he can continue to move you to your next levels. But he's not going to do that if you're sitting there looking at what he's providing like, hurry up. Okay? So that's why I'm sharing this. The prize. So the prize that came out of the cereal. Y'all correct me if I'm wrong. I eat Cheerios every day. I ain't never seen nary a prize come out of nary a Cheerio box. Okay. So what this represents is really the fact that these things that we're waiting on, these grander blessings, in our eyes grander, these promises, they're likely to come from unlikely places. They're going to come in the midst of what appears to be mundane, right? They're going to come when we least expect them, and they're going to come when God pours them out over us, just like he's pouring everything else out, right? So again, when we think about that prize, what it's really showing us is that we don't need to be so concerned with, God, when is it going to get here? How am I going to have it? How can I push this along? We don't need to be concerned with forcing God's hand. I'm going to fast 1,000 days. I'm going to give $1 million. I'm going to turn down I'm going to do all this. Like, we can't force God's hand. It's going to come when it comes. And it's going to come likely from unlikely places. It's going to come in the midst of his provision that he is already providing for us. The interesting thing about that prize, though, is the person who was standing there with their hand on their hip waiting for it to come out didn't even catch it. It poured out with the cereal and right on through that bowl, and the cereal just kept right on pouring. And why didn't they catch it? One, they didn't see it coming, right? Because they weren't even attending to really what was happening on that table. They were expecting, I don't know what they were expecting, but in my knower, I know they weren't expecting it to come out of that box. Two, they weren't in agreement with what God was doing. They weren't in a posture or a position to receive anyway. No utensils. They weren't sitting down. They weren't even trying to consume what God was sharing with them. So in the midst of all this provision, God also provided this thing that they were waiting on, and they weren't even in a position to see it, to grab hold to it. Nothing like that, because of the posture that they were assuming while they were waiting and while they were watching. Okay. So when we adopt this posture of kind of disconnected waiting, this kind of like, hurry up, I don't care about anything else, I'm just waiting on this thing, we really miss what God is doing for us. We miss the ability to be prepared, because again, the kitchen is all about preparation. If they had prepared for that cereal coming out of the bowl, they would have been prepared for the prize coming out of the bowl, but they didn't do that. They were standing there watching. They weren't sitting down. They didn't have utensils. They were not in agreement with what was going on. And so as a result, they also missed the prize that they were waiting on. And so that's not to say that if God has something ready for you, that it's not going to come. God is God. He's going to do how he wants to do. You take this to them. Dr. D is not saying, well, unless you do this, this, and this, you're not going to be. Those steps, I don't have the right to tell you what those steps are. That's between you and God. What I can tell you that he told me from this vision is really, we have to make sure that we're staying in a posture of agreement with whatever it is that he's choosing to do to and through us in this hour, because that is what's going to set us up to be able to receive what it is he wants to pour out on us and what it is he wants to give us. If we refuse to participate in his process, then again, our preparation is going to be prolonged, because we are not going to be in a posture to be able to appreciate or consume or take what it is he wants to give us, because God is ultimately a good father. And he's not going to give you something that he knows goodness well you're not going to be able to steward. Now, you can choose to go out and go get something. You can choose to do whatever you'd like to do. Chances are it's not going to work out super great for you. But again, this is all about preparation. And so we want to make sure that we stay in that position where we can accept what it is that he's offering. So that's the vision, and that's the symbols behind what God was showing me. So again, other people I know, there's lots of folks on YouTube who say, interpret dreams and different things, and they're like, oh no, food should represent this and tables should represent and all that. That's fine. What I'm telling you is this is the way that God chose to show me the message that he wanted me to give to you. And so always, always, always test the spirit. Go to God. Say, God, is this word for me? Is what Dr. D was saying for me? Is Dr. D hearing from you clearly? I'm fine with all of that. Because again, these aren't my words. They're not I could never come up with that image. What in the world? Like cereal and a bowl. Like I would never think anything about that. But that's what God showed me to share with you. So take it to him. See if that word is meant for you. And if it is, there are actually some instructions that God asked me to share with you all. So God gave me that image, that vision for a reason, not just to share that God speaks to me through visions and images and things, but really to say, okay, if any part of your spirit agreed with that, if any part of your spirit is like, ooh, maybe I have been doing that, God wants to help you, because that's what God does. He wants to help us. And so, this channel is all about reclaiming the territory of your mind, making sure that your mind is always stayed on Jesus so that you can get the things that he has for you. So the instruction, the prayer, God gave me a prayer point, if this resonated with you at all. So one of the things that would benefit you would be to ask God in prayer this week, all month, all year, however long you need to. Talk to him, ask him. That's between y'all. But ask God for the ability to see his outpour in your life, whatever that might be. Because like I said, those Cheerios looked real plain and real like, well, who wants Cheerios? Like, but ask God for the ability to see how he's pouring in your life, and to be able to appreciate how he's pouring into your life, not speak against how he's pouring into your life, and to come in agreement with how he's pouring into your life, so that you can really adopt that posture of being able to receive. A lot of times we spin ourselves all out. We get anxious and depressed and sad and frustrated and angry and all these different things because we're trying to force God's hand during a time that's not the appointed time, by doing things he never told us to do, by, just all of these different things. Take a breath, realign, ask God to show you how he's pouring into your life. Ask God to open your eyes to see why he's doing it the way he's doing it, if he chooses to tell you, because he doesn't have to, but he's a good dad, and he likely will. And ask him for that. Ask him for the patience that you need to have a settled spirit during this time, where the walls look bare and the sustenance looks mundane. But ask him for the ability to stay calm, to stay centered, to stay patient, and to really focus on what it is he has for you, and coming into agreement with those things. The other thing is, tell God, use your voice the same way that you use your voice to say, why aren't things working out? Why don't I have this? God promised me that. When is this going to change? When's there going to be a break? When's there going to be a shifting? When am I going to be released? When am I going to be free? The same way you use your voice to do all of that, just go ahead and use your voice to do something else as well, okay? So use your voice to tell God that you come into agreement with what he wants to do in your life at this time. Use your voice to tell God that you will wait on him and that you appreciate him. And use your voice to thank him for what he's doing. Adjust your posture, right? And if you can't, ask God, God, help me adjust my posture. Please help me see this through the eyes that you want me to see this through, to not speak against my season, to not be frustrated in my season, but to really get to a place where I can turn to you. I can see your hand in all things, and I can appreciate it. The other thing is, be active. So work while you're waiting. That person needed to have brought bringed. They needed to grab some utensils. Okay, it's early. Dr. D she's not with the grammar thing first thing this morning. Okay, but they needed to have gotten some utensils right? Which really indicate work during this season. God can pour out all these things on you, but if you're not willing to work, to take them, to consume them, right? To allow them to do in you what they need to do, then you're still going to be in a difficult place, like that person in the vision. So work while you wait. If that means not just hunting for prophetic words to confirm what you want to hear, but sitting down and getting to a place where you can say, God, I want to be developed so I can hear from you. That's work, right? I'm going to cut these things out of my life. I'm going to dedicate this time to talking to you. I'm going to, follow you even if I don't understand what it means. Whatever the case may be, that's work, right? Or if you're like, hey, I know God, I want this house, but I also know God has given me a ministry. God has told me to step out and start this company or this business. God's told me to do these other things too. So I can stand here with my hand on my hip and say, well, where are these things I'm waiting on? Or I can say, God, but you have given me direction on this, this, and this. So I need to work and move on that while I'm in this season of preparation. So the other instruction is being active while you wait. Bring your action, your hands, your utensils, your heart to the table, right? And don't just sit back and say, well, God, just pour everything on me. You have to consume it, okay? The other thing, the last thing, well, no, not the last thing, second to last thing. The other thing here is reclaiming the territory of your mind. I talk about that all the time because everything starts here. And if we can't get a hold of this, if we can't get a hold of how we think, how we process, if we can't, put on our helmet, right? Put on all of our armor so that we can withstand those darts, those thoughts, then we're going to be in a tricky situation. And so I have developed a worksheet. It's completely free on my website. I'll link that below. But I want you to, well, not I, this was part of the instructions that God gave me all together. If you have the time, if you feel led, go to my website, download the worksheet. It is free, right? I don't charge people for stuff. It's free. Go on the website, grab the free worksheet, and then try practicing the scriptures as affirmations. And so what that actually does is it helps to realign us when the enemy is throwing those darts, those thoughts. Oh, you followed God and now stuff's getting worse. Oh, God told you he was going to give you this, but gosh, he has to take you through all of this to get it. You could just go do it yourself. Oh, God, all this stuff, that stuff, if we let it sit in here, gets in our heart, starts coming out of our mouths. And we're going to have a whole mess on our hands when it does that, okay? Life and death and the power of the tongue. So grab that scriptures as affirmations and start practicing, again, part of your own work. Start practicing how you can start to fight, basically. How you can start to fight. Don't just lay down and let all those thoughts consume you, push you into a depression, push you into anxiety or whatever. Fight. So grab that worksheet. And there's four scriptures. So in the vision, the table obviously had 4 legs. Most tables do. Well, some have 3, like little side tables. Some have 2. Well, the table had 4 legs. And again, in my knower, I knew that God was saying that provision being held up, being taken care of, was actually those 4 legs represented scripture, right? They represented standing on the word of God and knowing that he's got you. And so I was praying and I was like, well, what scriptures are there 4 in particular? And obviously these are not the only 4 scriptures ever that someone could read. But these are the scriptures that came to mind as a result of this particular vision. So the first one is Galatians 6:7. Do not be mocked. Whatever man sows, he shall also reap. A lot of times people think of that in the negative, like, oh, God's going to get the folks who wronged me. You know what I mean? Like they sowed it, they're going to reap it. It's a principle. It's a principle of sowing and reaping. Whatever you sow, you will reap. And so during this time, being mindful of not sowing seeds of mistrust in God. Oh, God said he's going to do it. Why isn't he doing it? Why is it taking so long? Why does he have to take me through all this? Why does it have to be this way? But really being mindful that we sow good soil. We sow into good soil in our hearts and our minds. We use our tongues, right? So we want to be mindful of what we're saying, what we're thinking, and what we're doing during this time, right? We don't want to be sowing anger and distrust and frustration. Another scripture, Jeremiah 1:12, right? The scripture talking about how God's going to watch over his word until completion, right? So we want to make sure to be mindful of that one. Philippians 1:6, right? God who's begun a work in us, he's going to see it to completion. He's not leaving us hanging. He's not doing stuff just to bother or annoy us or upset us or to hurt us. He's a good father. If he said it, he is going to give it to you. But you are going to have to walk through the process that he has ordained to get you to that appointed time. And so that when you get there, he'll make sure that you're prepared. And then the last one is Psalms 46 and 10. Be still and know, right? Like, we have to be still and know that he's our God. It's not for us to push and to force and to, okay, I'm gonna, like I said, I see this happen a lot of times in spiritual communities where folks try and mask anxiety or distrust in God with a lot of religious practices that he may or may not have told you to do in this hour. I'm going to fast 1,000 days. I'm going to, give $1 million. I'm going to do, when we're trying to force God's hand. Yes, we want to participate. Yes, we want to fall in line with scriptural principles and all those sorts of things. But we also need to be still and settled and know that God is God. A lot of times when we run off like that, even under the guise of religious practices, what's underlying that is anxiety and distrust. I'm going to go. God, I need a word. I need another word. I need another step. Do you, or do you need to settle yourself, be still, and let God minister to you what it is he would like you to do? Sometimes we can't hear clearly what God is saying because the anxiety takes over and we start doing those sorts of things that God didn't tell you to fast right now. He didn't tell you to fast that way. He didn't tell you to give that. He didn't tell you to sow that. He didn't tell you there was any other steps you needed to do. He just didn't. Okay? Sometimes he did, but that's where being still comes into handy. If God said it, he's going to make sure it unfolds in his appointed time, in his way. And if God has a message or something that he needs to tell you, he's going to do just that. So we can be still. We just need to keep our eyes stayed on him and he'll direct us. Okay. So I hope this word blessed you. It's starting to get mighty hot in this car. I turned off the AC so y'all could hear me. It's getting quite hot. And that is actually all that God had for me to share with you all today. So as always, you've got this because God's got you. I'm Dr. D. I love each and every one of you. Thank you so much for being family with me on this channel. And I will see you all next time.